I'd like to call the Board of Trustees regular meeting Monday, April 6, 2015 at 7:30 to order. Please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Adoption of agenda.
Was there anything changed from the tentative one I got in the mail? Or is that fine?
Any additions or deletions? Same one.
Okay. I'll make a motion to adopt the agenda as printed.
Support.
Motion by Trustee Churchy, supported by Clerk Keith. Any other questions or discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Public comments? Any public? Sir. Please state your name and address for the record, please, sir.
It's Robert Schroeder. I live on 36220 31 Mile Road.
Yes, sir.
I just wanted to make a comment. I submitted a letter the other day about the road conditions, and I know tonight's meeting is to talk about some of the limestone allocation. I live right on 31, closer to Forest, but the other side is closer to Gratiot or the Richmond city line. It's like really bad. And, you know, I surveyed some of like the postal workers just to get their opinion, and they said this section is by far the worst in all of Lenox. And it even is worse than a lot of the Casco area. I'm just hoping that tonight it can be considered, you know, as part of the allocation of what needs to be done. And I think the bigger problem too is the drainage. You know, I was talking to Cam earlier, you could dump limestone on it all day long until we fix the problem with the north side of the road is constantly underwater. And Macomb County does a great job, but they just can't keep up with it. So I just wanted to go on public record and state that, and hopefully it pans out and we get that fixed.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Any other public comment? And sir, prior to that coming up on the agenda too, there is a, I don't know if you've seen the map showing how we've applied the limestone. If you'd like to review that prior to the coming up, we have one here. Perfect, thank you. Approval of minutes. 3/2/2015.
So moved.
Support. Motion by Trustee Churchy, supported by Trustee Boyd. Any other questions or discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Sheriff's report. I did contact Sheriff Wickersham. He is, and I've spoke to Treasurer Attenbacher about it. He is coming out next month to talk about some of the things that have been happening in the area. Also, he is having a film crew film some of his activity. He asked if it was all right to have that join him. If anybody doesn't oppose that, he'd like to come out and handle business. He's not for sure if it's going to happen, but he thought it might. But he'd like to address us during that and showcase our township in it. It's a French TV film crew from France. So he'll be here and be able to answer any of our questions, he said. That's all I have for the sheriff's report.
And on that, we also received an email from the person that actually does the reports, letting us know that they implemented a new software package, and that's why everything is behind. And he was hoping to get the March report out as quick as possible, and then he would go back and do January and February. So it's a new software issue that they have to recompile all the data before they can run the report. And we all got that on the 13th of February, or of March.
Thank you. Fire Department report, Chief.
Everyone has a copy of my report. I request that you receive and file that. I do have one question for the board. Our dispatcher resigned about 4 weeks ago. I put an ad in the newspaper, and I've received a few applications and plan on holding oral interviews next week. I was wondering, I have the question is, can I go ahead upon the recommendation of my oral board to hire this replacement dispatcher, or do I need to wait another month to come back to you? I would still provide you all of the candidate that we select information, but I'd hate like heck, because the dispatcher doesn't do dispatching. That person is also responsible for a myriad of secretarial duties also, and compiling reports for myself and for Marty, and I'd hate like heck to wait another month.
I don't think we should wait. I think based on your recommendation, that's just my opinion, that you should be able to hire the person that you want for that job at that time.
Well, ultimately, I think the board will need to put its stamp of approval on it. However, I think that the hiring process can go through, and perhaps if the chief, am I on?
I mean, you're on, I can't hear.
Okay. Perhaps if the chief would issue a report to the board and it be accepted at the next meeting, that would be sufficient with all the relevant information in terms of
Okay.
parameters of hiring.
Absolutely.
So technically, hire him contingent upon our approval
Yes.
type thing?
Correct. And also, if there are any parameters the board needs to set this evening so that the proper wage rates and whatnot, if there's any action for that, that would be appropriate, so we don't have any issues there, but
The starting wage is $15 an hour, and there's no benefits involved. So nothing other than the starting wages, which I have reduced. Nothing else has changed. There is no benefits for being a dispatcher. So,
Normally, the dispatcher is under 10 hours a month.
oh yeah.
Trying to think, you know.
Yeah, 10 to 15 hours a month, depending on how many runs that person responds to. And they're usually allowed to come in for 1 to 2 hours every week to do the report review, because that's part of their job. And unfortunately, that hasn't been getting done for the last 5 weeks because the dispatcher resigned due to family commitments.
So what you're saying, he can, but it has to be board approved at the next meeting.
yes.
Okay,
I'll make a motion. Does it need to be a motion?
I think it would be good to give the authority by way of a motion and subject to what we talked about, bringing it back at the next board meeting.
So moved.
Support.
Motion by trustee Boyd, supported by trustee Turchi. Any other questions, discussions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
thank you, everybody.
Chief.
Question, did you have some areas that you thought we should pay attention to with the gravel, or you want to bring that up when we?
No, that's Cam's handling it as the representative for all 3 departments,
Okay.
so.
All right, thanks.
We've all discussed, we didn't meet, but we've discussed through emails and face-to-face conversation, so Cam will do that presentation.
EMS report.
I handed it out just before the meeting, Mr. Supervisor. I just asked you to receive and file.
Thank you, sir. DPW report.
Receive and file, please.
Code enforcement report.
I have the Michigan Liquor Control Commission reports filed in my office.
Thank you. Assessing department report. Any questions? Engineers report, Mr. Safe.
Receive and file, please.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Safe? Library report. Lenox Township Library will close Good Friday, April 3rd. 3 Easter's already passed, April 4th. Business resumed today. April's a busy month for Lenox Township Library. Gamer Wednesdays will continue from 4:30 to 7 o'clock. Hula Hoop Mondays start 5:30 to 7:30. All writers are encouraged to submit stories for our April Writer of the Month submissions. Wednesday, April 15th, we will celebrate Poetry Month with our annual Poetry Jam. Calling all teens, the library will host a selfie scavenger hunt on Tuesday, April 28th from 5 p.m. Any questions, please contact the library. Senior Center report. Bless you. Any questions regarding the Senior Center?
I think it's great. I was looking at the list of all the trips that they're going to be taking, so
Very active.
very nice.
Supervisor's report. Received from Turning Point, and I believe, Jeanette, did you supply me with the copies for everyone?
Turning point?
Got them? Okay, thank you. April's National Sexual Assault Awareness Month. This year, Turning Point Awareness Campaign is turning the town teal. For this event, Turning Point will be tying teal ribbons on trees for 6 miles along Gratiot Avenue, Hall Road south to 14 Mile Road. Tomlinson Arboretum in Clinton Township and downtown Mount Clemens in order to raise awareness about what everyone should know about sexual violence. A coordinating social media campaign will be conducted on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. The messages in the campaign are how to be an effective bystander or significant other. Healing is possible. Sexual assault is preventable. Myths are not facts, and end media objectification of women and girls. They ask us to get involved. We also have ribbons, support ribbons that the board be passed out to the board that Jeanette has. She can do that tonight or tomorrow, and everybody will have copies of everything. So they're just asking for some support in their campaign. Also, under my report, one of our biggest issues has been our code enforcement. And I know some people have asked, due to the billing of Attorney Jopik's office, why the bills are extensive. And I can assure you that Mr. Jopik works under the direct supervision of all of those code enforcement complaints with myself, and he works with Mr. Murray on them. We make every effort possible to work these out with the individuals when these complaints come in. And our complaints consist of a written, dated complaint with a contact number. I can tell you the majority of our complaints are old, outstanding complaints that have been around for years. Issues we're still dealing with where we've come back and again and again. We even had another one after we went to 2 other ones where we dealt with 2 other complaints today, where one that we actually closed the file on last year, and the person decided to do it all over again. A lot of times we don't speak to these publicly, and I'll let Mr. Jopik address this. We don't name individuals publicly in our meeting, or some might be Liz pending or pending litigation, which we can't discuss in the public, I believe. But if you want to add to any of this, Mr. Jopik, I just want to assure you that money is not being spent recklessly. In meetings today, once again, he actually determined in some of these meetings the planner can meet where he doesn't have to be here. We try to use them as wisely as possible, but unfortunately some people, they don't want to work with us in some instances and want to do things a different way. So we have no choice at that point other than we just can't, I don't know if the perception is we can just go out and stop somebody from doing something. It does not work like that. And maybe I'll let him explain a little bit of that we have to follow procedures, we have to follow court procedures, we have to do things by the book, and that's where the billing comes into place when he has to get involved. So if you want to add anything to that, Mr. Jopik?
Well, the only other thing to add is, I suppose in terms of the litigation, I do report to the board on cases pre-litigation and post-litigation, but those are attorney-client communications. And I'm communicating, the board is my client, and I advise the board on the ins and outs and the strategies in connection with those cases. And as the supervisor indicates, a couple of the things are that many of these matters have existed for many years, some 10, 20 years. They've been an ongoing issue with enforcement efforts throughout time, and that has resulted in a number of legal issues, but the violations still exist on the property. The blight still exists, the dangerous buildings still exist, and the idea is to get these matters closed out. So there is in fact an investment of time and effort, not just by township staff, but by my office and also the planner's office, because a number of these issues, what we're trying to do is work with the residents that are in violation to pull them into compliance. Some of those we're able to do that by bringing them in to talk with them and explain to them the legal processes that exist to go through the planning commission process or the ZBA process for variances, to have the opportunity to correct them before we drag them into court. We only go to court, and this is the approach that we've been taking for the past couple of years, is to avoid going to court. Court is even more expensive than trying to work it out up front. And when you go to court, the court wants to know that you made an effort to work with these individuals to correct the situation before you go to court to have a court force them to do it. That's where you get the forced enforcement, is by going to court. The court is the only one who can order them to do something. There are some exceptions to that. When a building is very dangerous, the building official can issue orders that prohibit the building from being occupied, but that doesn't clean up the property yet. To get the property cleaned up, in most cases, you have to go to court if the property owner isn't willing to comply. That takes time, that takes effort, and there are constitutional protections. Both, we're dealing with people's private property, so of course we're going to want to make every effort we can to follow due process and treat people equally, equal protection clause of the Constitution, takings clause of the Constitution. There are unreasonable entries on the property, searches and seizures, many legal issues that come up that we want to make sure that the township is not stepping into any pitfalls or acting inappropriately or violating anybody's rights, on top of working with the residents. And yes, that takes an investment, and it has taken some time. We've resolved a number of cases, and we've resolved many matters that before even going to court. There are some, however, that are extremely obstinate and have extreme violations, existing extreme blight on their property. And when there's not the cooperation coming from the property owner, despite the township reaching out, and you end up in court and they're of this extent, which some of these are, then it becomes a very difficult and prolonged litigation. Others are district court matters. We try and keep them in the district court. Judge Hackle is an excellent judge in our district court, and many of those can be processed through tickets at a lot lower expense. And that was part of the reasoning. The board will recall, and maybe some members of the public, the board adopted the civil infraction ordinance to enable that to happen in district court and save on expense. So those are some of the things that is going on. Again, much of the communication comes from my office and is attorney-client communication with the board. But the court actions are, of course, in the public courtroom, and people can enter the courtroom at any time. But that's the extent of my addition. I'm sorry I went on about it, but if there's interest in the public, I think it's important to explain all that.
Yeah, we did not, the ordinance wasn't in effect. We did not have a ticket book prior. Them have all been taken care of. And I think the best way to resolve these expenditures is to wrap these things up, to finally take care of them and get them over with, because the expenses come from reliving these over and over and over again. And I think if the message gets out there that, hey, we'll be happy to work with you, rectify these problems, cause the least amount of pain as we possibly can, people will be more apt to work with us. But also the message is out there that if you don't, we're not going to mess around, and we're going to take you to court, and we're going to get it done once and for all. And it's going to be a bigger expense to you. So I think by sending a clear message in that direction, it will accomplish savings to the township, I feel. And I think Mr. Jobbick's been doing a great job. Dave Birchler's been involved, helping out tremendously. Shannon's been doing a great job keeping track of everything. Chief Fouché, when we need him to step in, he steps in, does exactly what he needs to do to make sure the township is covered for all liabilities. That's our main thing, is that we're doing our job we're supposed to. So if anybody has any questions regarding that, I'd be happy to sit down and talk with them. And also too, if any residents have any compliance issues that they're concerned about, come in and talk with us. We'll be happy to spend whatever amount of time we need to try and resolve them with you or to fix the problems. So I just want to put that out there. Thank you. Treasurer's report.
Make a motion to approve the treasurer's report as presented.
Support.
Motion by trustee Boyd, supported by trustee Turchi. Any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Orders and bills.
I just came across one question on the last page, number 73. Is
Yes.
that for?
MTA? Yep, MTA and other mileage-related expenses.
Oh, that's your room and everything. Oh, gotcha.
Okay, thanks. Is there any other changes?
What's the total on the one you guys have?
349,041.
Okay, it's 349,041.10.
Okay. I'll make a motion that we approve the orders and bills at a total of $349,041.10.
Support.
Motion by trustee Turchi, supported by trustee Boyd. Any questions or discussion? Deputy Clerk, roll call, please.
Turchi?
Aye.
Boyd?
Aye.
Attenbacher?
Aye.
Keith?
Aye.
Trombley?
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you. Trustees report. Trustee Turchi, please.
Okay, a couple things. First, at the planning commission level, minor action, but we also talked about possibly looking at doing our 5-year review of our master plan. So that's something that Dave Burschel brought up, that we need to start looking at that. It doesn't mean you revamp everything. We could, like last time, just look at it, change a few things, and make sure it's all up to date and just reapprove it. But you have to review it for 5 years. The other issue, I want to congratulate New Haven High School boys basketball team. They had an undefeated season, and when they won, I think it was districts, they actually beat my alma mater from Detroit. I was surprised to see Osborne High School in the paper, and that's where I went, so that's okay. So, but congratulations to a great job, guys. So, thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Boyd.
Yeah, two things. Unfortunately, the last couple months, I've missed the cable commission meeting due to work and family commitment. So we really do need to see if we can find an alternate, a second person. I know we talked about that when I picked up the position. I don't know if we should re-advertise it or how we want to go about that, or just spread the word if anybody knows anybody that's interested. It's once a month, you go to the meeting, usually takes about 45 minutes to an hour, and you're done. So if anybody is interested, please, we could use the help. I can only make so many meetings. So. And the other thing is, I went to the Pine Tree Acres Wildlife Management Team meeting last week. It's unbelievable, the things that they do there. It's all their reserve, their nature reserve that they run over on the property over there. And Kathy Klein did a great job showing everything about it. One of the things that came up, she would like to put up signs outside here where our bioswale is. Some on the bioswale, and then one presenting about what the whole thing is out here. Kathy, I asked Kathy if she'd talk a little bit on it, so we know what's going on. Yeah, it's not something we have to act on tonight, but that we know what she's looking to do.
I'll pass this along so you can see what we're talking about.
So the signage is educational. It's meant to provide residents in the community knowledge of what a bioswale and a rain garden are, because they see these features here, but they don't necessarily know what the intention of them is. And right now, there is so much transition going on in society, and there is so much information being shared and environmental practices that are taking hold now, that the best way to get it out there in the public domain is to educate them about it. So the signs are interpretive signage, similar to what you'd see like in a park or a historical feature, and they're designed to just provide that education. So the goal would be to put smaller signs in the bioswale area of the parking lot strategically, so that people might bump into them, and not literally bump into them, but just have an opportunity to notice them and kind of read what that's all about. Because the bioswales are meant to actually do bioremediation for oils from engines and cars that will use the parking lot. And it's a very environmentally friendly and natural way, as well as providing habitat for pollinators, butterflies, bees, that sort of thing. And then the rain garden here, the signage would be placed somewhere where, as people approach the building, would have an opportunity to kind of read and learn what that's all about as well, so that they know and understand that that was put here by design to manage the rainwater coming off of the roof of the building. And again, provide a biodiversity and habitat. Okay?
And Pine Tree Acres will pay for the signs.
Pine Tree Acres would pay for the signage. We would work, the township would have complete approval on what that signage would look like, where it would go, that sort of thing. But as part of our wildlife habitat program that we are certified in at the landfill, we can bring efforts into the community. It doesn't have to all take place on the property of the landfill. And that signage would be a way of enhancing habitat, or at least you've already enhanced the habitat. It would really be more an opportunity to educate about what those enhancements are about. Okay.
And then we would install that.
That, whether you guys would install it or, yeah, that's all to be worked through. It's more tonight just to bring the thought forward so that you can decide whether this would be something that you would be interested in.
And if the board's okay with it, I'll continue to work with Kathy on it and everything that.
And Cam and I as well.
And Cam, yeah, because he was at the meeting also.
Okay.
So, yeah.
And we'd have to look at the sign.
Your sign ordinance, right, exactly. That's why we're having these conversations now, because we know that there will be some process that actually has to unfold. All right?
Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kathy.
And that is all that I have.
Thank you, Trustee Boyd. Also, too, and I think I spoke to Kathy, for everybody's information, we now have bald eagles in the township.
8 in one day per spot at the site.
I saw my ration down here
Yeah,
about
so
2 months ago.
they're around, so keep an eye out for them. Beautiful. Clerk's report.
We have an election coming up on May 5th. I'm sure all of you have seen it on the news, and it's coming. That's on May 5th, and today was the last day to register for that. So if you are not registered to vote, you will not be able to vote in this election. That's all I have.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion to receive and file all reports.
Support.
Motion by Trustee Churchy, supported by Treasurer Attenbacher. Any other questions? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. There is no unfinished business. Number 20, new business. Letter A, Fire Department Lighting Replacement Project. Chief?
Thank you. I sent the board a package last week, or dropped off a package last week with a cover letter, and I'll summarize it. Last year when we were doing the budget, we actually put a line item in for capital outlay for replacing all of the exterior lighting at the stations. And the reason is twofold. Number one, Station 1, those posts are 26 years old. They're rusted completely through, and it's just a matter of time before we start having a serious problem with them. It's costing us a fortune in electric bills, and Karen can definitely attest to that, the amount of electricity we spend at both stations. So I put together a packet for you. I contacted 5 different electric companies and received bids back from 3, and I've attached those quotes to my cover letter. And you'll notice that I'm recommending the highest bidder instead of the lowest bidder. We all know lowest isn't always best, but as I cover in my letter, so the residents understand, is I'm recommending approval or requesting approval of the higher Supreme Electric for several reasons. Supreme Electric's our regular repair company that we go to repair all our electrical needs at the fire department at both stations. They've done an excellent job. I've been using Jeff for over 10 years, and they've done an excellent job. As I stated in my letter, Supreme Electric was the only one that came back, took measurements, actually examined all the concrete bases at all the posts at both departments, at both stations. In addition, they took measurements. In addition to that, they actually wanted to know what wattage and lumens we were using in order to submit a complete package, which you can see by, if you examine all three bids, they're the only ones that completed and provided a complete package detailing what they're going to replace and the new equipment they're going to replace with. And it is for that reason, and one final thing. I'm aware that DTE has a program for rebate. It's a 25-page document that I have to complete, and it's very time-consuming. And K&E, which is the supplier of all of our electrical equipment needs right now, where Cam and I purchase all of our stuff from, they're also the supplier to Supreme Electric. Supreme Electric brought Mr. Kuchenmeister out from K&E, and he has actually volunteered to complete the entire 25-page document for me at no cost. Basically, all I have to do is review it, put my name to it, sign it, he'll submit it, and then we resubmit a couple pages when the project is complete. And I'm going to tell you, from somebody who does a lot of grants and a lot of rebate projects, a 25-page document is a lot of time. It's very time-consuming. So, with all of that being said, I'm requesting the board approve me to go ahead with this project and award the bid to Supreme Electric in a total amount of $25,915, and that covers both stations, all exterior lighting. And additionally, I'm sure everybody understands that when you go to LED, your electric consumption is going to go down approximately 25 to 35%. And because our lights are on, from dusk till dawn every day at both stations, that's going to be a huge savings. So I'll take any questions if anybody has any.
Well, I think it's pretty safe to say the other two, all bids are estimates and they can change. And
Yes.
the time that Supreme put in to come back, take measurements. And
That meant a lot to me.
Well, yeah, because you're not gonna, they're a lot less likely to come back and say we need another $7,000.
Yeah. I told Cam and Marty when I was doing this project, I'm leaving some things out on purpose, and one of them was the size of the light bulbs and the wattage and lumens that we currently use, because I wanted to see if anybody was going to even bother to ask. And Supreme Electric was the only one to ask. That means a lot. And like I said, we've had Jeff, the owner from Supreme, do a lot of work for us at both stations. And
they're local, he's right out
they're
there.
local, they're right in Richmond.
I like that too.
Now, on the rebate program, how much would that?
Approximately, that's the other thing that I didn't include here, but he sent me an email, approximately $600 rebate we will probably get. With the amount of fixtures that we're replacing and what they're replacing them with, he's already done the homework on that. He said probably between $500 to $600 rebate.
So the rebate might cover the permits that it's gotta be pulled?
Normally,
If they're all
Bob waives for department buildings, Bob Osterman. He'll still come down, but he usually just waives the fee. He'll just come in and do a quick check to make sure, but Bob usually doesn't make them complete a permit.
Well, I thought that was really nice of them, that they're gonna fill out all that paperwork.
That's huge for me.
My only concern and question, was that a question posed to the other ones?
No. No. That was something, I already knew, I've got the packet, I've already printed the packet. This is something the representative from K&E brought up in our meeting without any prodding from me. It was his idea that, are you aware of this program? I was, oh yes, I'm gonna fill it out. Well, I'll do it for you, 25-page document.
That might be a small thing to them because they probably filled them out for a lot of people.
I'm sure they have.
But it's a big thing to us that would have to fill it out. So.
Yep.
Yeah, my only issue, I'm aware of all these companies, I think they're all reputable, and my only issue is that if one didn't have the same requirements as the other one and based on cost.
No, they all were given a typewritten, these are what I need you to quote on. And I walked around with them. And nobody else asked the questions that I expected to be asked.
Supreme offered to do it. It
Supreme-
wasn't part of what you asked for. They just said, we'll fill this out for you.
Yes.
Based on the extensive quote and service we've had from Supreme and them coming through and looking at everything combined and everything, and the fact that they're willing to help you with that rebate, I'd award the contract to Supreme Electric for $25,915.
Support.
Motion by trustee Churchy, supported by clerk Keith. Any other questions or discussion? I just have one other question. Being that we do have lower bids, did we ever consider lowering the price based on that? If they take a reduction for doing that with an award of the bid?
What do you mean?
We have two lower bids, that's what
Right?
I know, and I agree with you about lowest bid isn't always the best bid in most cases. But we do have one that's lower.
But there's no information telling me what he's going to replace our equipment with. So to me, that's actually an incomplete bid.
That was specified to them, that they had to tell you? That's all
No.
one of my concerns.
That was part of my written package that I gave them. Because what I was seeking to see how complete their bids were going to be. It'd be no different for me to bid on a fire truck and specifically leave something out. And the top-notch guys will catch what you've left out and say, oh, by the way, chief, you need to bid on this. These guys didn't even bother. The two lowest bidders were at the station maybe 10 minutes each. That's it. Jeff spent probably a half hour the first time going through everything, walking around the entire building with me. Then he brought back Mr. Kuchenmeister from K&E, and we spent another half hour going through everything. They actually wanted to physically see the bulbs that we have in inventory upstairs so they could verify everything, and we did.
Yeah, I tend to agree with Chris' comments also about that because they were so extensive in reviewing the situation. They know what those poles are like. They know what the bases are like. The other companies do not, and will most likely come back and say, well, when we were putting this pole in, we found out this base needs to be redone. And the cost will go up, so I'm still comfortable with Supreme.
Okay.
Any other questions or discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Ron. Thank you, everybody.
DPW new hire.
Good evening. Last week I reviewed the 15 applications that were received from the 2-week ad that we placed in the voice for the open DPW's position. 5 of those candidates were selected for interviews. 3 of those candidates declined to interview after discussing the position on the phone. The reasons that they gave me why they decided to decline being interviewed kind of varied depending on the person. It was either not enough pay, not enough hours, or the medical coverage did not extend to the family. I did have one candidate that only responded to me by text. He never did bother to call me by phone. But out of those 5, I did have one candidate, Mr. John Kaczynski, that was interested in coming in and sitting down with us and discussing the position further. We did have an opportunity to do that. An interview was conducted by Supervisor Trombley, Treasurer Ottenbacher, Deputy Ventimiglia, and myself. Mr. Konski is a real good candidate for the position. He does come to us with 27 years of experience from the Road Commission, as well as other valuable skills that are listed on his resume. At this time, I would recommend that the Board of Trustees extend an offer of employment to Mr. Kaczynski at a rate of $12 per hour.
When we put the ad in the paper, wasn't it $8 to $10 an hour?
Not for the full time.
What was the full-time?
I believe it was from 10 to 13.
That I couldn't remember what the range was. I think this, being that he's a retiree, this is a perfect fit, as long as, you know, he can do what you need him to do, with only 30 hours a week.
Well, with discussing them, that was one question that was brought up was, you know, was there any physical limitations or did he foresee any problems with what we outlined with the position? And he commented that he did not.
I mean, having said on the interview process, and I'm not going to speak for Treasurer Ottenbacher, but I mean, we were lucky to get this applicant. And let's face it, out of the 15, there's one. I expect great difficulty in the future trying to get anybody else. I think we were very lucky to get this guy. I think he's a guy that Cam is not going to have to look over his shoulder. He has experience running all types of equipment and everything. And thank goodness we got him to apply and choose to work here. I see him being an asset to us, and somebody that would work well with Cam.
Yeah, throughout his 27 years, I mean, he started with the Road Commission as a laborer and basically worked all the way up through, and I believe he retired out of there as an assistant division foreman.
I still just we have to rethink these positions, and I know there's not a lot of money out there, but someone told me today that McDonald's starts at $10 an hour, and even a part-time guy that we have using our very expensive equipment at $10 an hour, it just doesn't seem realistic. So some of these guys, we get a good candidate, we've had in the past, we want to try and keep them around a while. It ends up costing us more money if we don't. So just like to reiterate that.
Yeah, the one thing that worries me is like the election that you spoke of that's forthcoming. If some of those proposals pass, that's going to open up a lot of work in this state. I think you're going to see a pretty good shortage of laborers in the near future if that goes through.
There already is.
And those will be all prevailing wage type jobs because of what the work is, which will hurt, unfortunately, organizations like us.
You're good with this?
At this time, I have no problem. Mr. Kaczynski seems to be that he's going to be a more than adequate fit for this position.
And that's, like I said, seeing that he's a retiree, he's on the downswing, he doesn't want a bunch of hours, he doesn't need
Right.
insurance and all that kind of stuff, so it's kind of like a perfect fit, you know. I make a motion that we approve the hiring of Mr. Kaczynski at a wage of $12 per hour.
Support.
Motion by Clerk Keith, supported by Treasurer Ottenbacher. Any other questions or discussion?
Will there be a probationary period and then a raise like we normally do?
I'm sorry?
Will there be probationary work, raise, and then a raise like we normally do?
I hope so. If he's what we think he is,
I think we should have in there what it's going to be, how long, and then if he works out, what's the raise going to be? We're going to go to the 13 that was advertised?
I'm not willing to go that far because we're already starting him in the middle of the range we did.
Yeah, I think leaving it.
To put it in-
now
to
and
put it
then-
into the
then
motion.
If we look at all raises or, you know, some
I'm the bad guy.
Just to say, okay, after 90 days, you get an automatic raise like we've done, no,
I know I'm the bad guy when it
Because it's
comes to
starting in the
wages.
Yeah.
But just a suggestion or a comment on the matter, if I may. You know, as you guys go forward in reviewing our employee handbook and that, maybe looking at something as an incentive to further education that does apply to your job, that would make you a more valuable employee here for the job that you are doing.
I just want to reiterate too, we only had one make it to interview process, one.
He hasn't even started yet. If he gets the S certification, I can see that being a raise situation, just like it was with the last one.
Address it at that time.
But address it at that time.
I would address it on Cam's recommendation to the board, or talking to us, if we get this guy and he can run every piece of equipment and Cam don't have to look over his shoulder and his asset, Cam should be able to come to us and say, hey,
Well, he can do that
we need
anytime.
to look at.
Anybody can do that anytime.
That's right. Because he'll be the one working with them side by side on a daily basis. Any other questions, discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. That's for immediate, correct?
Sorry.
Immediate hire?
Immediate hire.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. Thank you. DPW water service request.
Okay, I know I had sent out a prior email to formally submitting this. What this is basically the exact opposite of what we currently have worked out with Chesterfield. We have a township resident that resides right on the border of the village of New Haven. Unfortunately, where we do not have water mains at this time, but the village does have a water main that is close that can serve the property. This gentleman is interested in obtaining municipal water service for his property and has since made a request to us for that service. In the past, the way we've worked this with the Chesterfield properties, Chesterfield requested service from us, we supplied it, Chesterfield Township is our customer. In this situation, if the village agrees to this, we would become a customer of the village. We would retain this property as our customer. The suggestion I would have is that we use the same language in template for this property as we currently use for the Chesterfield Township properties. I did forward a copy of the intergovernmental agreement to Mr. Jaffe for his review, and I don't believe he had any comments at this time. Obviously we would just change the language or the wording in there that would apply to us in the village and in the property that's affected. Mainly at this time, what I'm asking for with this letter is to move forward and request this service from the village on an official level. And then, of course, who would actually make that request? Would it come from the supervisor's office or would it come from mine?
Okay, I have the same questions for you that I asked when this first was circulated. Can he not find water on this parcel?
I know there was an existing house on the property, so I assume that there was an existing well. Now, is that well usable or did it pass health department standards? I do not know.
If you look at the big picture on this, yes, this is the last parcel before the village. But if you actually look at the big picture, it looks as if the village has already taken probably 2 parcels away from us, probably because of the water. And so this would be another prime annexation type takeover of a parcel if we allowed this to happen. And I don't understand the reasons the man wants to. Also, the village is going through, their water bills are atrocious right now. I mean, that's what a lot of the hubbub in the village is about, so I don't know, does he realize that as well?
I know he's had some discussions with the village, whether he's actually talked to them what their rates are and charges and so on and so forth. I do not know because I was not part of that meeting. As far as the annexation portion of it, he could move forward with that anyways and then just deal directly with them.
Well, it's one of these, any of our other borders, it's one thing when we're the ones selling to, but on the other end of, we've actually had that conversation on the other end that, oh no, you can't go to the city of Richmond to try to get the water because,
Well,
and so I'm just
yeah,
curious.
as long as I've been here, the city has always had a unwritten policy that they will not extend services outside the city limits.
No, I'm just saying,
Yeah.
we would be looking at it, oh no,
Sure.
because of that.
Sure,
So,
and I mean, whether we do the intergovernmental agreement, I mean, the gentleman that's his option to do, if he wants to proceed with annexation or not. I don't think this is gonna help it or stop it either way. I'm just following up on a request that the resident is asking for water.
Attorney John, because part of our intergovernmental agreement, could we put that specific language in that they would not be seeking annexation of that parcel for us to allow them to do that?
We could certainly put it in there and propose it as part of the agreement. One of the things I wanted to mention is that, yes, we can pretty much use the existing agreement that Cam sent over to me. We can add something like that. Their attorneys will look at it, I'm sure, and they may have some different language for intergovernmental agreements than that, but it's certainly something we can use to propose. I want to make sure the board didn't approve any contracts tonight because we're not at that stage. But yeah, we can include a provision along those lines and see if that can help. Additionally, we can consider a provision, some sort of a separate agreement with the property owner indicating that he will not petition for annexation or sign a petition for annexation.
What about the next buyer?
And I was just going to say it could be recorded potentially against his property for
Deed
some
restrictions.
that use township water. We could indicate he'll hook into township water if and when it becomes available to his property. He'll disconnect from the village and connect to the township. We can put things like that in there and address annexation with the owner and see if we can at least provide some hurdles to address the annexation issue.
I don't think it would affect us any other way negatively other than the loss of the property. So if we protect ourselves with a provision, I see no problem with it.
And that provision would hold up in court, that he just can never, ever, ever try to annex into the village.
well, that's usually what's behind any annexation is somebody else can give, do the services that the municipality can't.
That's my thought.
And so that's why, and then like I said, looking at it, it's already where New Haven, the village, juts out 2 parcels.
It's creeping closer in.
And I bet you it was about those 2 parcels.
Yeah,
one
because
one.
that was one of the reasons Richmond kept saying they wanted to annex, because they always want to square off our boundaries. Well, you're getting this little divot, and then there's also this big piece of property on the north side that's gonna try next.
I think if we don't do it and they can't get water, I think that would be more of a reason for annexation, for someone to grant annexation than us working out a deal with them.
Well, I'd like to hear why, like Jody said, what are his reasons for it? Can he not get water on it?
And that's what I'm saying. If they couldn't get a well there, then I would understand it,
Right.
completely. The New Haven water line is right there. That's why I had asked that before.
Did you receive an actual letter? You said you got a request from. Did he just talk to you? Did you get some kind of letter from him?
I did actually speak to the gentleman first on the phone, and then he actually came in and filled out a water application, which is always our first step with any resident.
Okay.
And that's what we have here, that just has his name and address?
Yeah, it's very basic because these are all preliminary stages.
Do you have a contact number for him?
I do.
Down there, it's on.
I'd like, why don't we come back to this, why don't you call him and ask him if he's got water in any way, shape, or form?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, there was a house there for a long time, so I'm sure there's some type of well on the property. But it hasn't been tested and, deemed safe in it, that I couldn't tell you. I believe he just acquired the property, and I think he'd rather have city water than well.
When did he contact you, Kim? What's your date?
Approximately 2 to 3 weeks before he made application. I'm not sure if there's an actual date on this. Probably, I'd probably say roughly a month and a half ago is when I
Like
spoke.
a month and a half. I mean, you sent that email probably,
Yeah, and I talked to him just days before that.
Yes, Attorney John.
One of the things the board might consider adding is, from the sounds of it, there would be a little more extensive involvement in my office if we're going to be negotiating terms of a contract for this one property owner, an intergovernmental agreement nonetheless. Don't know how much that'll involve with New Haven, but at a minimum, I would be drafting provisions. Perhaps it could also be posed to him that he reimburse the township for its legal fees that it incurs for this, if it proceeds forward.
Yeah, and like I indicated a couple of times, this is just a preliminary step. If the village doesn't agree to this issue dies. Once everybody's even in agreement, if he looks at the fees and go, no, this is not doable for me, it dies again. So there's a lot of steps for this to get through.
Typically, what is it, 1.5 times?
No, because he is not, he's still
Or-
within the township, so I don't believe we'll be able to, charge 1.5 times.
What would his rate be? Just the going
It'd be the
rate?
same as everybody else in the
Okay.
township.
But doesn't the village charge more for water? So we would have to
believe-
pay the village fee, not ours.
See, off the top of my head, I can't say because,
But if they did,
They
they
bill
would
it-
pay their fees, right?
yeah, they're gonna charge us the same rate they charge their customers.
And that's what we would bill him. We just can't tap.
No, we have to bill him what we charge our customers, whether it's higher
Even
or
if it's
lower.
less. Oh,
There's no way we can charge somebody different.
so we
So it could
can't,
end up costing us money to give him water. Potentially, it could,
Potentially,
yeah.
or vice versa.
There's no, Attorney John, there's no way to recoup that amount?
I don't know about that. That's something
Yeah, I don't
new.
think-
I don't believe, I mean, in the past, we've had different conversations. I know our other legal counsel had said there's no way we can charge a different rate. The only provision we have is if they're outside of our district, outside of our township, then we can do the 1.5 times.
I understand that, and that's a different scenario when you're providing outside of your own township and you're providing your water. Here, however, he won't be receiving township water, he'll be receiving water from the villages, according to their costs. I'd like to look into that some more. I'm not so certain about that.
Please, if there's something different, I would like to know.
I can
That's-
tell you, I can't see that being the case. I'd have a hard time believing it, and I understand, and I remember being told that by him too. I remember being in the meeting, but in this case, this scenario, I don't see how we could charge less if we're being charged more. That
We
just,
shouldn't even be
there's
the
no way.
one charging.
Pardon?
We wouldn't even be the one charging.
No, he'd be our customer. That's what
Why?
Cam's saying.
It's not our water, it's New Haven.
But we retain him as a customer because he's within the township. He's within our limits, not the village.
Even though we don't supply water there. And
That's correct. And And currently, that is the way it's worked with the 3 Chesterfield connections. We supply the water. Chesterfield's meter is what meters that water. They read those meters and report the usage to us. And then we bill them according to what they report.
Okay, so I think this needs to be looked into a little bit more. So there definitely isn't something that would cost us money. Like I said, if you pay attention to the scuttlebutt in New Haven, everyone complains about the water bills, so, and the cost of. And so I would hate to do something like this and lose money on it.
So who would you talk to find that out specifically?
The conversation I've had thus far is with their superintendent, Marcus Dilbert. So I would probably again approach him to find out further information. I do know that they bill in gallons, where we bill in cubic feet. So it makes it a little difficult to just say, oh, we charge this and they charge this, because you have the multiplier difference. With the village water bills, there's a lot more tacked on there than just the water and sewer. So there's things that a normal resident would pay that we wouldn't. Example, garbage. I know
Well, the garbage and all that kind of stuff I understand, but some of their water debt, they could tack on, I would think.
and that would be something that I would say that we would need to be in discussion with as part of our intergovernmental agreement.
Yeah, because technically we'd be paying that if it was more still.
You know,
Yeah.
as far as like system development fees and things of that nature, I would agree, yeah, we would need to pay those. Subsequently, those would be back charged to the customer, just like what we would do to, or have done to outside of our community in the past.
Was he planning on developing right away?
I know he's trying to plan to build this coming building season.
He's talking a house?
Correct. As far as I know, a single family residential.
And I only ask because right now it's an investment company that owns it.
Yeah, that's what he told me. Whether he's an investment company and he's looking to build and resell it, I'm unaware of that.
How big is the lot? Could it be a
It's not that big.
subdivision?
No.
Well, it's not big enough for that, but.
An apartment complex?
Single family residential.
So if you could find out, Cam, if he's got documentation saying you can't get water on that, that's one I'd be interested in knowing.
Okay.
And then, of course, about the fees, if we have to make up the difference, if there is one.
Well, Cam can't find that out, attorney job, I believe.
Well, he said he just talked to the APW.
Well, I mean, I think you're referring to the water rates,
Right.
what their current rates are, which is public information.
No, I thought you meant you said if we have to pay more.
Well, if the rates are higher, we have to pay that difference.
Yeah, just kind
We
of
can only charge our rates.
That's what you want clarified, correct?
Correct. Which is just him finding out what their rates are compared to our rates.
And you think they're higher?
Honestly, I actually thought they're like saying per gallon or higher. I thought it was actually a little less.
Oh, yeah, that way we know.
That's where attorney job would come in.
But, you know, that's an easy question to find out as far as what their rates are. Say what a gallon of water costs versus what our gallon of water costs.
Now, if your thoughts on we can't charge more, is that the rule of Detroit Water and Sewer?
No, I think that's law.
Okay.
You know, it's just like the difference when you deal with the gas stations, you know, when they start price gouging. You know, it's just like, it would be like you paying more for your electricity than your neighbor. I don't think that's legal, is it?
Well, again, this is a situation, for township water, it's absolutely correct. We can't charge one property owner more than we charge other property owners, but this is not going to be township water delivered through the township system. It's going to be village water delivered through the village system. And I'll be quite honest, when I've prepared these types of intergovernmental agreements before, the fees, the tap-in charges, and all the charges that are associated with it are the fees of the community that's providing the water are charged to the property owner that is having water extended to it. So I'll be very interested to see if there is some law out there that I'm not aware of that says even when you're not supplying this person with your water from your system, you have to charge them the same costs and tap-in fees and so on and so forth from your system, even though he's not on your system. And I mean, that's not my understanding of how it works.
And you are correct, and this is the way it's worked out in the past. You know, we have specific fees, whether it be lateral benefit fees, system development fees, tap fees, so on and so forth. We charge those, Chesterfield forwarded those to the property owners. Chesterfield also applied their fees on top of those that resident had to pay in order to move forward. Those fees we're not responsible for, that is the property owners. The only differences, I guess you could say, would be in water rate. But as far as assuming any kind of cost to hook this gentleman up, no, it wouldn't be any cost to us to extend services, run lines, things of that nature. Even our meter that would be put in there, he would be billed for, just like any other resident.
Well, it'd also be if they tack on the debt that all of their residents are paying. If we can't charge that back to this person, then we would be eating that part of it. So it would be costing us money.
And that's more of a legal opinion as far as how that can be applied.
Like I said, I have a hard time believing that there's something out there that says that we can't pass that on to them. My understanding is we can. But I'm hearing that I need to check that to be sure.
I would agree with you.
Because before we ever agree to anything like this, if it's not enforceable, I need to advise you of that.
Sure. Oh, I agree.
I would have a hard time believing we'd be forced to provide service that we would lose money on. So, please up to the podium.
You know, having sat on a board that went through this and we ended up losing how much property on the south end of the township to Richmond because we couldn't provide water and sewer to that area up there. Do we want to get into something like this with New Haven? I don't think we should even get involved in this.
That not getting involved, that person could seek annexation through the village. Is that correct, Attorney Jovic?
I believe so. I'm not fully prepared to.
By not getting involved, that would probably entice that person more for annexation.
Jody just said it's an investment company that owns it?
An investment company can be a single individual. Could be a single person under an LLC or an S corp that's created an entity just for business purposes. So by not getting involved, and if he doesn't have water, I would say that would be his first move.
I think we have to be extremely careful.
Absolutely.
Well, I agree 100%. I do not want to enter into something that's going to cost us more money and be more of a debt or a hindrance, especially in my department.
You're too far away from there, from water?
Yeah, he's on the west side of the village, right where the village and the township meet on New Haven Road.
It's all over here.
Yeah, right near Roselle and New Haven Road.
There's a house already there, isn't there?
There used to be, it burned down some years ago.
There was a lot of well issues over in that area, I believe, and talking to some of the residents, and I think minimum standard is 2 or 2.5 now, GPMs with the county.
Something like that.
Yeah, it's 2 or 2.5 GPMs per hour, or I mean gallons per minute, or gallons per minute. And that's the minimum health department standard for them to approve it. So,
Yeah, I mean, there's a very good chance that the well that was there is plugged. I really don't know.
And that's why I asked that question when you first sent the email out. What's the reason for, I mean, I forget the rest, I had 2 or 3 different questions. And those were never really answered. It's just the guy wants to, so. I guess I make a motion to table this so that Cam and Attorney Jopik can come back with some answers to some of the questions that have been brought up in this discussion.
Support.
motion by Clerk Keys, supported by Treasurer Attenbacher. Any other questions or discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
One question in regards to this. I guess, would it be prudent for somebody from the township to even write a letter to the village and even ask if they're willing to entertain why we're researching the rest of this? And if so, what kind of fees would be?
My suggestion would be for you just to call Marcus out. Why this is being done. Give them a call and just ask them first if they would even consider entertaining it. Who's the head of the DPW for the Village of New Haven? I think your direct contact with him would probably be the best source, and he could get a quick answer for you probably.
Okay,
And if we have to create a paper trail afterwards,
I can do that.
that's my suggestion. I don't know if anybody. Call him, see if he's got water, what the issue is, call Marcus. Boom.
Very good.
Thank you.
Who is my map?
2015, 2020, Macomb County Hazard Mitigation Plan. Do you have anything else, Kim? Okay, thank you.
Every 5 years, Macomb County updates what's called its hazard mitigation plan, which in more common terms would be called the county disaster plan. And basically, I put a resolution in front of you tonight adopting that document. What the document really permits from our township standpoint is 2 very important things. One is it allows us to apply for certain hazardous mitigation grants. Chief Foucher's used some of those in the past to be able to put up tornado sirens. The EMS currently has a grant request involving a generator project with regards to that program. Further, without that hazard mitigation plan in place and approved by the township, should we have a larger scale natural type disaster, flood, tornado, things of that nature, arguably FEMA could actually not provide funds to the township for mitigation, for cleaning up after the event. So for all of those reasons, I would strongly suggest the township pass this. I have shared the plan with Chief Foucher. Both he and I have looked at the document. It comes on a thumb drive. It's about 300 pages if any of the board needs something to read in the evening to put themselves to sleep. But it is a pretty comprehensive document. Both of us recommend its approval. And like I say, it's a 5-year approval process. So the last time we did this was in 2010. So we're just due to do it again according to the County Office of Homeland Security.
Thank you.
I think you should have a copy of that resolution.
Yep.
For passage.
Need a motion to adopt it, and then you want it read into the record, Mr. Chapik?
Yes. You'd like me to read it in the record?
Sure, if you want to.
I don't.
Doesn't it need to be read in the record?
The resolution?
Yeah. Yeah.
It doesn't have to, as long as the motion specifically identifies it by the title at the top of the page.
I'll make a motion to approve the resolution to adopt the 2015 to 2020 hazard mitigation plan.
Support.
Motion by trustee Boyd, supported by treasurer Attenbacher. Any other questions? Discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
If Clerk Keith could just, once that's all signed, if she'd like to just scan and forward me a copy by email, I can get that to the County Office of Emergency Management on behalf of the township if you'd like.
Would you want it signed tonight for you?
Yeah, that's fine. I just didn't want you to have to do it during your meeting, so.
Let's get it.
If
Let's
it's
knock it out.
all done, I can take it, yeah.
Thank you. 2015 Macomb County Limestone Program.
Oh, rough night.
It's been a rough day, isn't it?
Been a long day. Yeah, I apologize. I must have mislooked at the agenda. I thought I was at 3 right in a row there. This year's limestone application, again, I did drive all of our back dirt roads, and I was able to come up with 3 different miles after kind of going through our map, the current locations that we've already done. And this year I am recommending Frost Road between 27 and 28 Mile Road, which I've already had some discussions with the county on doing some extensive ditching through there as well. That particular section of road not only has some drainage issues, but has flooded out pretty severely the last couple of years. Different times the road is almost impassable. The second mile, 31 Mile Road between Pashock and Low Plank. Again, another area that we have not done yet. That road is also in dire need. Not only is it low compared to the ditch lines, but it does receive a fair amount of traffic because of all the residents on Grammar. And lastly, 31 Mile Road between Pashock and Low Plank. This being the last mile section of 31 Mile Road, which would make that entire area complete.
And once again, speaking to this, just so everybody knows, and some of you have seen our plan, what we're trying to do is knock out these roads. We're designated them not only from point A to point B where these roads are done, but we're also putting the year that the limestone application has been put in place. We've been very fortunate that these applications only come at a 10% cost to the township. We've always fought for more miles. I believe initially we were offered 2 and we got them to agree to 3 miles. We've always fought for the extra miles, and we've been very lucky in getting it, like I said, at a 10% cost. It's not a bad thing to do. And even on the one road we spoke about today, too, a shared road with the village, that might be something on the side if they pick up that, instead of us paying for the whole thing, if they pick it up under one of their miles, if they have the same program, maybe we could do something with a 5% shared cost with them within their program. And I forget the road name. It was on Roselle, which we have not completed yet. And I understand your concerns are most definitely, and I think we have to address these with this ditch program first and evaluate each one. And I think the county's going to have to step up and even apply more limestone to some of these places. Our hardest argument is with the other part of the population is the areas we haven't done yet. Sure, come on up, sir.
I did speak with Mr. Schroeder briefly before the meeting. The area of his concern, I did go through there a couple times. It is in very bad shape right now. It is probably one of the worst or the worst area we have in one spot. But this limestone application would not fix what's going on there right
One
now.
thing I'd like to do with Mr. Schroeder, if we could, and this has kind of worked in the past with myself and Mr. Safe, is we met the road commission right on site. And you have firsthand knowledge of it, and maybe you, but it seemed to work the last time when we said, hey, we need you out here, we need to show you our concerns, we need to address these concerns. And Mr. Safe helped out with that, and we got some action.
I'm already in conversation with the road commission about that area. But unfortunately, Friday was Good Friday, and today was a furlough day for them.
Okay.
So,
Sebs, you're thinking what
I'm already way ahead of you, and already have that in the works. That is the only reason why you don't see that on this limestone program.
is that okay with you, Mr.?
Yeah, as Cam stated, it's about a 200-foot, maybe a 300-foot section that is really bad. It's like a swamp for the most part. Every time it rains, it's almost impassable. Only the north side of the road becomes a two-track where nobody can even use the north side. And it's a danger. And, I understand that we try to allocate based on, so much per year. But I would like to state that this section has 5 times the volume of traffic than any other road in Lenox. I mean, there's 1,000 cars a day going by there. And they're all playing chicken with one another. And so people kind of get over, and a couple cars got stuck last week right in the mud bog. It's really bad.
Yeah, and a lot of the frost is still coming out of that area.
And what I'd like to see is an engineer get out there with the county. I'm not an engineer, but I'm assuming they have to dig the ditch and maybe put some underground culvert to drain the water to the south side where there is a deep ditch. And then, like Cam said, maybe take that section of road out, put in some large aggregate, and then top it with limestone. It's only
You're saying the base isn't sufficient on the
There's no
road?
base.
There is no base, and that's why even putting the limestone on top of that, the way that road is working and pumping right now, it would just turn into a deeper hole. The limestone is not sufficient enough to basically bind up and tighten that up.
Mr. Safe, could you join in on this for 1 second?
There's always a drop off when you.
I would like Mr. Safe, I think you guys are right on with it. I would like him involved too. And that way, if that road isn't correct, let it come from us and our engineer. If we have to battle with them, if the road's not done properly.
It's a big safety issue too. You can't have people sharing the same side of the street.
Unless you have another suggestion, Mr. Safe.
Yeah, the assessment is correct. It's just, the county would say, okay, we don't have any funds to fix this.
Well, it's a safety issue though.
Upgrade. Do we have any data to back this up? Do we have any accident record? I mean, they're gonna look at that. We have to have something measurable. We can't just say, okay, it's a hazard. There are no accidents, so to say.
There is accidents.
But we need to prove that to them. And once we...
Maybe we can ask our deputies if they can issue a report statement or something.
Once we come up with all that data and assessment from fire and EMS and DPW, maybe we can negotiate with the county some kind of program. I've seen in the past, if there's nothing available, then you create an SAD. You have the property owners petition the county for an improvement. And it will be an installment back to those property owners. Unfortunately, it's a county right away.
I would like to see Cam continue what he's doing in contacting the county and, maybe me having them come out like you did in the other location.
In my mind,
If we all know that you leave that pavement and you don't know where you're gonna hit a hole, but you're guaranteed to hit one.
Sure. And that's even part of the reason, the condition for that road is because of the speed they leave that pavement, as well as the amount of traffic and the size of the traffic.
You and I know,
these
slow
are
down
all-
before you hit it, but
Right.
there's people that they don't care or they don't realize it, and then.
Well, in some areas too, that frost is different
Sure.
than
And
other
there-
areas of the
Well, the
road.
first 30 feet past the pavement is the worst part. It's slightly past where St. Augustine owns the land on the north side and there's some residents on the south side. That area just is very low, and you might have thought and intended to come here tonight was hoping that we can get some of the allocation. Maybe not the small 22A limestone, but some of the big stuff.
Right, and unfortunately, that's not part of this program, but
Yeah, there's
I don't
an
think-
area of pad on 31 also between Pasha
west, you know, like west of Cache out there, it's like an underground spring, and that was always a bad area.
Yeah, and I mean,
The trees are and everything, and you always get,
they've gone out there and they've dumped more material down, trying to help this situation, and obviously it's not really fixed it. So they're well aware of what's going on out there, and they've always been pretty receptive in the past. So I'm hoping that once we get a meeting with them and sit down with the parties involved, that we can come to some sort of resolution to try to avoid how intense this gets every spring.
What is the criteria also to maybe pave that section?
Traffic count, mainly.
Pardon?
Traffic count, mainly.
Because just as Mr. Schroeder said, that particular section and then going into the city of Richmond right there is the heaviest traveled. Everybody that's coming from the Kroger store and, you know, out and beyond is using
Maybe
that
not right
part.
now, but during normal conditions, yeah.
Huh?
Maybe not right now.
Anytime there's anything that happens in Richmond, like the other day, I think there was something with the railroad.
the train.
Yes, trails.
Every car down Main Street took in front of, we literally had a parade of cars.
Yeah, I really think this number is low.
I do too.
What would it take to get these updated?
I could look at them. I think we've done this back in 2011 when we originally first got the data. It was a combination of MDOT and some kind of. Now they don't normally update that every year, but
We could get the latest
I
data.
can certainly look for the latest and greatest data. Now just clarification that the pavement within the city limits the roads are owned by the city, not the road commission.
I'm sorry.
The paved section of 31, that is within the city limits?
Yes.
So that's not under the road commission's jurisdiction?
Oh, I understand.
Yeah.
It
No,
wouldn't
I
be nice to see
understand.
it paved
But
all
this
over.
part of it is.
This
And
part of
Yeah.
It's a cutoff, it's where everybody uses it, and it's been like that for as long as I can remember back. And remember, I live in that area, so I know the cars.
Yeah, I've been a resident for 26 years, and I don't think I've ever seen as bad as it is now. And like, I think it was about, 6 years ago, they did put a lot of limestone, but it.
Due to traffic volume,
This is gone.
sinks.
It helped for a little while, but
Yep.
it's not anymore. So, you know, this is one of those measure it twice, fix it once, you know. So that's why I'm just throwing another alternative out there. And so then it's to see which is the better bang for our buck, depending on what Survey comes up with.
Yeah, we can certainly look at the data and approach the road commission, see what it would take to pave that road. And I'm assuming it's from the border to Forest,
Correct.
that stretch?
About a half a mile.
Yeah, a little less than a half a mile.
And it'd still be a pain. The traffic continues all the way down. Like I said, that whole road is a cutoff to everything. But just that section is probably the worst.
And based on these numbers, it's 1,000 cars a day.
Would they make us do the intersection as well, or would they allow us to stop short of that?
It all depends what exactly their criteria is for pavement. You know, could be improvements to the intersection, could be concrete on the intersection, widen the road and shoulders and ditches. You know, we don't know.
I'd prefer to see if the county repaired it instead of paved it. You pave that section, you see traffic now, wait till you see it once it's paved. It'll be a racetrack.
Be a safer racetrack, but right now,
No.
we've had rollovers right in our front yard. I mean, like, one woman flipped her car and was screaming bloody murder, and she was okay, but, and then across the street, we had another rollover, a young lady. During the winter months, there's a lot of accidents there. And where the bad part that I'm talking about, there's not too many accidents because you can't go that fast through the road.
And I'm just throwing that, like I said,
Pavement would be, I mean, I would love
Yeah, but I said, it's just another,
Sure, oh no, right, definitely if it's a viable option. But I'm
and it
sure-
might not be, it might be so far.
Well, that's what we'll do at this time, then, we'll explore any and all options
Sure.
for repair or replacement or whatever for the whole road, and see what every option is available to us and at what cost. And that way we can bring it back, how's that?
Mhm.
Absolutely. Sure. Thanks for getting involved, that's what helps us too. Cam, your recommendation?
The 3 miles that I listed on my letter to the board for this year's limestone application.
I know it depends on traffic, but on average, how long is the limestone supposed to make a difference? And I don't understand, you can't exact, but I mean, are we looking at 3 years or 10 years on average? And I know it depends on traffic.
Come on.
Really does depend, like all the stuff they put in front of my house.
So many variables.
Yeah, I mean, driving all the other roads that we've done prior, there's really, in my mind, only 2 exceptions of areas that we've already done. One is that one little spot that Mr. Schroeder's talking about, and then sections on 27 Mile Road. 27 Mile Road has not been the same since they redid the bridge on 26 and all that diverted traffic. It really beat that road up, and that road has not been the same since.
So you're saying all the ones we've done are still,
Yes, I mean, you can definitely see the difference at almost any time of the year.
because I see we got something that goes back as far as 2005.
Yeah, I believe that's when the program started. And because that was such, a bad spot,
I know that his is 2005, that area.
that was the very first place that we put it.
Yeah, because it was bad.
Correct.
Well, I like to make.
I mean, obviously, we do.
Yeah, well, that tells us, at that time, that was the worst spot in the township.
Sure. And, I don't like going out this early in the year because there is still frost in the ground, it's still coming out. But the road commission in the last few years, they've really, kind of put us in a bind, and they want these road designated now, so they can plan their applications forthcoming.
Can we see about getting a commitment from them to give us some attention with this road? Because if we can't, then we're gonna.
Well, that's what he's gonna do.
Well, I'm just thinking, if there's 3 miles of road that we're gonna repair, if they won't do it this year, we gotta at least patch it somehow.
Oh, no, that's what
That'll
they're submitted for.
As far as patching, that's considered maintenance, and that's what they've been trying to do right now. But I'm actually looking for them to do something more significant than that. Something to give it more of a base, because right now there is no base in that section.
Right.
Yeah, you're saying if they did this limestone right now, if we chose to do that area, it
They
wouldn't.
still wouldn't do this.
Yeah.
It would last a couple of years.
You would have to lay it on there so heavy, it would be a ramp. In order for it to bind up enough to hold up how soft that is where he's speaking.
So everyone has Cam's recommendation. Any other questions? And he's gonna contact the,
And I will continue my efforts to meet with the road commission. It's just, like I mentioned, it's just unfortunately bad timing with some holidays and some furlough days going on. We're looking at some pretty wet weather the rest of the week, so I think those guys are gonna be limited on what they can do, so I should be able to nail them down.
I'll make a motion to approve the 3 miles suggested by the DPW, Frost Road, 31 Mile, and 30 Mile Road.
Support.
motion by trustee Boyd, supported by trustee Turchi. Any other questions or discussion?
Do we need the amount that it's gonna cost us in the bid? The 10% cost share by the township is $21,345. We need that in the motion.
I'll amend my motion to include the cost of $21,345.
And now support.
Thank you. Once again, motion by trustee Boyd, supported by trustee Turchi. Any other questions, additions, anything? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, Cam. Yes, sir. Make sure you do this cross through.
You know, I'm sorry too, Mr. Mayor, you know, and I apologize, we got caught up in this. Did you want to say something too?
Yeah, I just want to know if they're going to, if that's going to alleviate the problem with the flooding across the street. They must be in a leak. But their sump pump runs 365 days a year.
You're talking about just south of yours, on the opposite side of the road?
Yeah.
Yeah, and what that is groundwater.
That's what I figured, he must be in a leak.
Because if you're, going back roughly 8 years ago,
Yeah.
we actually dug up a section
Yeah,
following
you
old
did.
field top.
Yes.
And it's just groundwater that naturally comes out. Same problem down the street, but that's more attributed to sump lines from the houses. But yes, with the road improvement as well as the ditching improvement, yes, it should alleviate and keep all that out of the roadway.
Okay. 2012 International Property Maintenance Code adoption.
Do we have anything on that?
I don't have it. Jeanette?
I wasn't received anything. All I was told is that by Bob that everything, you just have to approve the 2012 International Code. It's done every so many years.
I didn't receive anything from him, but he just needs it adopted.
That's my understanding.
It's just so we follow the 2012 standards versus
Yeah.
whatever.
I would just make a motion that go ahead. No?
This is actually an ordinance adoption. The board should have the actual ordinance in front of it when it adopts it.
Don't have it.
So I have a notice of it, but I don't know if that's the actual ordinance or not. I received that.
Is this time sensitive?
No.
Okay.
No. This is the International Property Maintenance Code. Every 3 years, the International Code Corporation updates it. And so you just adopt it whenever it comes along. As you can see, it's the 2012. Probably came out a while ago, so I don't think there's any.
And this is being published in the paper on the 15th? No.
Only if you approve.
Okay, just checking.
I'll make a motion to table 20F, 2012 International Property Maintenance Code adoption until we get the actual document from the building inspector.
Support.
Motion by trustee Boyd, supported by clerk Keith. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. High-tech system service contract, month to month. Clerk Keith.
It's that time of the year to do the annual contract, and as I stated in my memo to the board, I asked them to break it down into a month-to-month because I am in the process of getting quotes from High Tech and another company on a new server, and I don't want to be locked in with High Tech if they are not the ones that we go with for the server. So at a cost of $1,356 per month, I'd like your approval to have me go into the month-to-month with them.
So this is the same contract, just broken down month to month, so we don't have to sign a long-term with them until we're ready. Okay.
Yeah, I would, you know, and like you said, that you're shopping this at that time, we get some more information too from one of my supervisors meeting on some other companies providing service. Maybe, you know, per your request for qualifications or proposals, I'd like to look at some bids from some of these guys to see where we're at nowadays, because the one recommendation I got was that their company does almost everything remotely. They don't even have to come in anymore, and handles a lot of their problems and have extensive cost savings to them. They're a large community, so definitely something we might be able to cut cost on. Excuse me, Jeanette, do you have that information too on that tech company available for the board?
I made one copy. I was going to put it and give it to Jody tonight, but I didn't make copies for everybody.
Okay, maybe let her get a copy of that, or the rest of the board will stick it in their mailbox for one we can check out. But I like your idea of going month to month till we sort this out.
I'll make a motion to approve the month-to-month with high-tech system services at the cost of $1,356 per month.
Support.
Motion by trustee Boyd, supported by treasurer Attenbacher. Any questions? Discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes.
There's other information on the bottom of the memo that I gave out, just to let you know the other things that I've been looking at and going through demos of, me and Carol and Karen.
New Haven Fountain Project Bench Request Update. Per our last meeting, I contacted Mr. Jones and informed him of the suggestion by the board to come and look at the other benches that we have on possibly him utilizing those, and he informed me he was going to come up and look at them and contact me back, and I've not heard back from Mr. Jones yet. So unless the board wants me to pursue him on this, I was waiting for him to say what he wanted, but we did what he asked. First bringing it to the board and then offering those other benches. So I have no other information regarding it.
I just wait for Phil to see if they contact you.
Okay, maybe table and give it one more month, and then if he doesn't contact you by next month.
Well, either that or just take it off and if Ron hears something from them, then he can put it.
He was going to come up and look at the benches. That's what his
Yeah,
last
that's all he's
statement.
gonna do is look at it.
Yep. I don't even think we need to make a motion. I don't think taking action, correct?
No, it's just an update.
All right. Building department advertisement. I don't have anything either. It's basically just a discussion. Had a discussion with our building official, Mr. Hymas. He informed me that he is going to retire. Treasurer Attenbacher was also present at the discussion. In speaking with him, we would definitely want him to be involved in any transition of somebody new coming on. How this came about is I had a couple employees tell me that he was not going to renew his license and was planning on retiring. So when we were doing a meeting, me and Treasurer Attenbacher, I asked him, and he said, you know, these are my plans at this time. Based on the amount of time, I don't think we're starting too early here with a posting of this job and his input and any type of transition. I don't think it's too soon to start thinking about this, because we definitely don't want where we wait till after he's gone, or because I think there's a lot to be done there.
Did he give a date?
September 15th.
September 15th.
That's when his license expired.
So I think it's gonna at least take a month of advertisement. We have to put the proposal together through an RFP and an RFQ. Month of advertising, and then interview process where we'd like him involved also. So that's why I don't think we're pushing this.
Do we need lengthy, like a RFP, or just a?
We can make it very simple.
Write up an ad and put it in.
We can make it very simple, but I think there's a lot of things we want to go over and be very specific with. They can be addressed after the fact, but I think these are things we should address up front with our applicants. As far as pay and other things that I just think we could be wasting our time interviewing if we don't specify them exactly up front. Oh, absolutely.
Well, do you want to work with Bob and write up like an RFP,
What I'd like to do, honestly, is I want to check with a couple other communities that I have my supervisors meetings with, ask them if anybody's hired lately for that position, get a recommendation on their RFP or RFQ, see what they've put in it, and maybe use it as a guideline to go off there. And Jeanette, I don't know if you have any suggestions, but we'll ask the guys that are and the gals at the group.
I think between you doing that and Shannon and Bob working together, the three of
Correct.
us.
I definitely want their input
Yeah.
in this process, and I think between all of us, we can definitely come up with something that's solid.
There would also be Semboya, that's the actual, where Bob, that's the association that Bob goes to. They should be contacted. Did Bob know that this was on the agenda?
Yes.
It's a discussion.
No, I'm just asking because there might be actual trade papers
Right.
that this type of ad should go in.
He's going to the Semboya meeting on April 15th. He's going to announce it there because all the inspectors there are state certified. And there's some guys in this area that they might be interested in it. It's not a lot of money and there's no benefits. But if they're doing another township or another village or something, we'll take it on as, as another one.
It'd be great if he was willing to do that for us.
Yeah, you will.
And Attorney Johnson, too, I don't know if any of your other communities, if you have any where they've hired recently for that position, any language that we can use, if you do happen to have any.
I don't personally, but I can check around my office, see if any of the other general counsels have it.
Thank you.
Yes.
As far as the hiring practice involvement during the daytime, if Treasurer Anbacher is available, myself, Shannon Komorowski, I think is going to be one of the most important parts of it because it's going to have to be somebody that works very closely with her on a daily basis. And then also too, I'm going to check with our other inspectors also, Mr. Osterman and Mr. Penovich. So I think it would be good to get a good input from everyone and Mr. Hymes. So, yes, Jeanette.
We get an ad together, word-wise, before next board meeting. Do we have permission now to advertise and let Bob see what kind of papers that he can put it in, or building magazines, or?
Well, I don't know if we need to advertise.
Or are we just gonna do it by word of mouth? Or do we have to wait till next month? 'Cause that's gonna narrow it down tremendously if we want somebody in here before September.
Maybe get an approved RFP or RFQ with an advertisement for next meeting. I am going to be down for a couple weeks here shortly, so, but for the next meeting it should be fine. It'll probably take that long anyhow to get all the information together from everybody, being 4-day work week, so my recommendation would be to get everything ready for the next meeting.
I would say just get everything ready, because we actually need to have Bob come to us and give his, formally tell us he's going to retire.
You want a letter from me?
Well, it's kind of like, he's been with us so long, I want him to have that option to come before us and say, before we try to fill a seat before it's even cold type thing, It just seems like we're pushing it ahead, and I don't want to.
No, this is definitely, I can tell you, this is definitely not being pushed ahead. Mr. Hymas had already spoke to people, and that's how it came to light, so.
Yeah, formally.
And then out of respect to him, we asked him so that I wasn't going to say something without talking to Mr. Hymas.
Karen, I did talk to Bob last week after you guys had met with him, and I told him it was going to be on the agenda to talk about the advertisement.
He hadn't actually seen it though, because I didn't see it until tonight.
Well, I told him.
Okay.
So.
You were there, I mean, he's
No, I'm
definitely.
not saying you
slighted him or not, I just
Well-
want Bob to have that,
Right, make it official.
you know, so he can make it official.
There's the word.
Well, when he tells me this is what he's doing, I mean, it's coming right from him. I have to go off of what he says.
It might be, but I don't think that's really official.
No, I mean, it's what he said. I'm not,
Official?
Well,
Just,
I don't think any employees are required to submit a written resignation document. It is nice if they do, or can be helpful if they do, to avoid any uncertainties in that regard. But I don't think it's a requirement at law or anything to submit that. He has approached the supervisor of the township and informed him that he is retiring and given his date, and that's all that's necessary. Anything beyond that is...
he informed, for the
makes
record,
it
if you
nice
want
and-
officially, he informed me and he informed Treasurer Ottenbacher in a meeting between us.
And then today he came in and officially gave me a piece of paper and said, my certification is done September 16th.
yeah.
I quit.
And so, nothing written, nothing handwritten, he just said, I'm done on September 16th, and he did tell me that I was the only one that knew it at this point. I was hoping he put something in writing for everybody, because he has been here a long
I think
time.
he thought it was a little too early.
Yeah.
You know, it's 5 months away.
But if we want him to train this person,
Pardon?
Gotta get somebody in here
to help, so he can help train.
I know, and I understand all that, and the only thing I was, like I said, Semboya, Bob would know some things, places to actually put the advertisements so that we are hitting the right niche with the advertisement, as opposed to maybe the Macomb Daily isn't the best place to do it, maybe the Voice isn't the best place to do it. And that's the only reason I asked if Bob knew this was on the agenda.
He's going to make that announcement, you said on the 15th, is the Semboya, did somebody say?
April 15th.
April 15th. He will make that announcement, and then I'm sure we'll, in the meantime, we can be talking, trying to get some things going with him and how we should word it, and we'll get the ball going.
He also said you were forcing him. He did.
We're all back.
Yeah. Just for the record.
1978.
Thanks,
He's a figment, I mean, he's
Yeah,
just,
I know.
He said he couldn't stay in because he'd be under duress, but
It's time for him to quit. Trust me.
You need to check that barn where he's at.
Which one?
Oh, it's got a couple of them.
Retiring
Yeah.
so. What's the board's pleasure with it?
Well, you said it was just discussion, right?
Yeah.
So,
Well, do you want to take action? That's fine.
well, no, we start, like you said, you guys start working on the RFP. We'll have Bob announce it, see what he comes back with as far as where to set it all.
Policy manual revision. Attorney Jopik.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. The board has before it this evening what I believe is a final draft of the policy manual. A lot of work has gone into it, of course, a lot of discussion, a lot of good discussion.
Yeah, how many years?
It's been pending for a while.
5, 6.
It's got whiskers on it.
We're gonna trim it tonight and finalize it, hopefully, with the board. The only thing I did to it after our last discussion is plug in the changes that the board instructed me to. And also I did some formatting of the document to make it look pretty and organized and nice, and with headings across the board and all the borders lined up and everything. So I did do some formatting to it. The only thing that I, as a novice on the computer, could not figure out are the page numbers at the bottom, and I forgot to mention that to Jeanette. Each page is supposed to say page 30 of however many total pages there are, as you can see. 60. Just listed it as 30 of 30, 29 of 29, all the way through. I couldn't figure it out for the life of me.
Mine are correct.
Yeah,
Yeah, is that right?
Well,
Somebody must have fixed it for you.
must be my computer then. Jeanette is waving her hand, so she probably pushed a button or something.
Okay.
Well, mine will be the only one that doesn't have the page numbers right. Everything else looks good on mine.
Thank you.
So hopefully, of course, if there are any follow-up questions, I think I covered it all, but if you have any follow-up questions, I'm happy to answer it. We will be bringing back some materials concerning the Freedom of Information Act as that law gets put into effect later this year. So we'll need some updates fairly soon afterward to comply with the FOIA changes, but otherwise I think it's good to go. And of course, it's a living document. As things come up through time, it can be adjusted and amended in the future as well.
I just had talked to Jody earlier a little bit, and with the continuing education, didn't we have, and I guess you must have taken it out, maybe a brief reason why, like repayment after, if you leave, if you pay for the education, like if the township pays for the education,
Right,
and you leave right away.
that whole section was taken out where we pay for education. So it's all gone, so as far as having to stay or reimburse,
We address each of them.
yeah. Because it's not in the policy anymore, so in the policy, we're not paying for education. And Jody and I were talking about it too. I don't think we'll ever change the, classes, continuing ed, things that we've always done. That's different because that's this job requirement for different departments. But as far as going out and getting a degree in something, with that being gone, we're not paying for it at all anymore.
Okay, so even though we pay for it, there's no restriction on times or nothing?
Paying for it. Well, if I may, we're not, the way it's been changed, and I think Trustee Boyd was trying to explain this, the way it's been changed, we're not paying for it anymore, period. So there's nothing to reimburse.
Oh, okay.
Yep. But if there is attendance at seminars and conferences and continuing education, that's paid for by the township, but those are that's not tuition.
And we approve those as they come up individually.
And the big revamping on that was so that we weren't expected to pay for higher education that really doesn't apply to anything that the job that is being done here, the task at hand.
I'll make a motion to approve the Lenox Township Policy Manual and Guidelines as revised, official 4/6 of 2015.
Support.
Motion by Trustee Boyd, supported by Treasurer Attenbacher. Any other questions or discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Letter K, wetland ordinance. Mr. Safe.
Good evening again.
Good evening.
As you're aware, we have two proposed projects that came in for wetland mitigation banks, and there was a question or a discussion by several board members and the Planning Commission is what do we have in place for restriction on wetland development banks? And at this time, we don't have anything. It was always assumed that the state regulates the wetlands and wetland banks, but there's no local ordinance to restrict or regulate any wetlands. Now, we've done some preliminary research, and most of the municipalities don't have anything in place because, again, they assume the same thing, that the state regulates that. But as far as development, I believe the township would like to see something in place as far as either a master plan or an actual ordinance to have a mechanism to restrict the wetland mitigation amount in the township. I guess the bottom line is the township does not want to see Lenox being designated as the go-to wetland bank or wetland development areas. I think one community has an ordinance in place about restriction. Some have just guidelines and master plans that they follow, but we can certainly go dive into this further, working with
the attorney and the planner and put something together.
Would this be something that would be at the planning commission level, where they would designate certain areas as
Correct.
wetland potential, just like
Correct.
we have business, different designations everywhere?
Correct.
So it would be at that level, okay?
It could be either part of your zoning ordinance, I mean, Attorney Jeff can shine on this too. It could be part of your zoning ordinance, part of your master plan, part of the grading ordinance, could be in different places.
The way I understood it was we were looking at how to restrict how much is used, just like the state, I don't know, the state, the federal, requires you to have so much of your land designated for industrial, so much designated for manufactured homes. And this way, if we have so much percentage of the township is only zone or master plan for so many acres, then we're not gonna be completely covered with wetlands. So we want kind of a guideline or our standard saying, okay, we have 10% of our land is allowed, and just like, all the other designations.
Yeah, the planning commission can spearhead this. I guess you can designate either Dave or I, and we can take this to the next level.
What's common practice of our surrounding communities?
As far as,
They have no ordinances in place?
not an actual ordinance, but again, there is one community that has an actual ordinance that restricts, and I can find who that is and get a copy of that language for you.
But this could be something we put in when we work on the master plan update too, I think.
That could be another avenue.
Yeah, I would think that would be the best place to start, because it should be a part of the master plan.
It should start at the site plan stage. Now, whether it's be in the zoning ordinance, the master plan, or that could be worked on.
Attorney Chapman?
Yeah, on that point, when you're dealing with something in your zoning ordinance, you definitely want to have it as part of your master planning process. To set your guidelines, your basis, your foundation, then you work in your zoning ordinance with it. You can follow both tracks simultaneously. Doesn't have to go master plan first, that's always nice. But if you're in a situation where you need to move it through, you can do both simultaneously.
This is perfect timing, that the plan commission is looking at updating the master plan right now. And if there's a mechanism to put that in, that this would work really well.
So is this something we should make a motion to have Dave Birchler through the planning commission start the process of looking at both master plan and zoning ordinance dealing with wetland ordinances?
I would like to see that on the next agenda, the master plan, like she brought up, and address it with him at that time, and then incorporate it if we have to.
Right, but as Steve just said, we should have both part of the master plan and an ordinance, so an ordinance could get started.
Yeah, but are you saying you want authorization for him to?
And then they can work it into that when they're working on the master plan. Because I know the master plan review takes longer than a couple of months. By the time you go through everything.
We want to know cost and everything in advance, correct?
So that's why not necessarily waiting for the master plan, because with the master plan review, they have to do the workshops with the residents and all that. It's usually a long, it's quite a drawn out.
Even if we don't change anything, we still
have to do all that.
Public hearings or something, notification and stuff.
I guess to initiate, you can authorize the planner to come up with a proposed plan of action and propose it back to the board. That includes cost and timeline and where it's supposed to go in the zoning ordinance and the master plan.
I like that idea.
And work with the attorney and the engineer if necessary.
Make a motion that we have Dave Birchler start the process of looking into all of this, having it both be part of the master plan and an ordinance through the planning commission.
Support.
Motion by Clerk Keith, supported by Trustee Boyd. Any questions, discussion? Now, I just want to clarify that motion. You're asking him to start looking at it and to come to next meeting and tell us, or what are you asking for here?
She's going to take it back to the planning commission and just say, you know, this is what the board said we want to start looking at, and he will fold it into the planning commission meeting and the master plan when they get to that part, because like you said, we still have to have a cost for the 5-year plan before we can tell them to move ahead with that.
All right,
So you
just
want me to have,
for informational purposes, you're
Dave,
saying for them to start.
put together a cost analysis for,
Well, that's two different things.
You want him to start putting the information together regarding this to the
The
planning commission?
wetland ordinance at the planning commission level.
okay.
Thank you for that. Any other questions or discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Safe. Site development, bond ordinance.
Excellent. There were some recent discussion about bonding requirements with Lenox Township, and I was under the understanding there were no bonds aside from landscaping bond is required when somebody comes in for a development project, and they pay for that along with their building construction permit, and they'll be gone. Now, Carl did some digging and found out that there is an actual sheet in your procedure manual that requires 50% actually from the landscaping cost system to be bonded, and then 10% of each portion of the site development. And I believe she gave a copy to the board. So the question here, whether that is being followed or not, I am not sure, but we do have to adopt something, not just the procedure manual. I don't know if Steve, you can add to this. It's part of the procedural manual, but not an ordinance or part of the fee schedule. We have seen other municipalities that require a 100% surety bond or a 100% cash bond before they can pull a construction permit. I don't think we have anything here. This is just basically to make sure that the developer, when it comes in for the project, that follow through with the project and complete the project before they go, leave the site and leave a hole in the ground or leave it undeveloped. And the township is required to restore that back to its original or complete the project. I don't think we have anything set.
I can tell you there's been problems with this kind of stuff in the past, even with these bonds in place where title companies have held these monies, and especially what just happened in the last 6 years with everything collapsing, that people found out these monies were not in place, that checks were just given with these amounts on them and they were not for real after a certain point. So I don't know, Attorney Jopik, if you have some suggestion to how to guarantee these funds other than other held outside of us.
Yes, I've worked on this issue. It is an issue that a number of communities were dealing with the recession recently, where some developments went belly up in the community. Some places were, and some writings about them, they were calling them zombie developments because they were there, but nothing was happening with them. There were holes in the grounds, there were partially completed roads, there was sewer and water, partly completed, dangerous situations, a blight in many cases in the community, and no money to clean the property up and make it safe and make it back appealing. They had cut all the trees down and so on and so forth. So the idea here is how do you get the financial security? Cash is one way to go. Most of the ones that I've seen have been 100% or even up to 150% when it comes to completing roads and water and sewer. When you're talking infrastructure that's public infrastructure or needed to get emergency vehicles in and out of an area. Some kids get hurt way in the back of a subdivision that's being put up, and the roads are all deteriorated and the emergency vehicles can't get back there because the developer is not on the site. Things of that nature, all sorts of issues are addressed through it. And one of the most effective ways that I've seen is to use a letter of credit. Cash, oftentimes that can be a large sum of money, and some developers operate on a cash basis and don't use lending. They're big enough and maybe have done their business in a certain way they can do cash, so you always want that as an option for sure. But a letter of credit is a method, if you're not familiar with it, where a bank actually issues a letter, and the way that it's worded is that they pay those funds upon the township sending them a request for payment. There's no questions asked. And you have a separate agreement with the developer. And I read this performance guarantee paperwork. Doesn't address it to that extent, but you need paperwork put into place, a form that the developer will sign and agree that under these conditions, if he doesn't complete all these aspects of the project, then the township is authorized to send a letter to the bank and take money from the letter of credit to go out there and do the work or to make the property safe or to maintain the areas and so forth.
If a company goes belly up, is the bank going to still do that letter of credit?
Yes, the letter of credit is there, it's set aside, and that's the whole point of the letter of credit. It gets you apart from the developer. A separate amount is set up separately. The developer has to pay for it to a certain extent up front.
Okay.
And it's basically, in a way, an insurance policy, but you have a bank that is
And the
very
bank is
liquid.
actually holding the funds.
The bank has the funds, yes. It agrees to pay it, and it's part of the financing that a developer will have through the bank for his overall project. So that's just one option in addition to cash. Bonding is also another fairly common way to do this. I've seen a lot of communities moving away from that because trying to get the money from the bonding surety companies is often very difficult. And sometimes you even have to litigate it to get that money from them, and then you end up spending more money than you.
Once it's set up, can that be performed without a mutual release? Can it be one party request based on their the way it's set up, because without dispute?
Yes, that's why you want the agreement to go along with the letter of credit. Your agreement is with the developer, landowner, and that sets up the procedure for you. If I don't complete the final wearing course on the roads in my development or the driveway in my development by December 1, 2015, you are authorized to go in and take money out of the letter of credit and do it or make it safe or whatever. And that is all laid out in there for each of the types of improvements. So it's clear cut. Not done, you get the money.
And also a release at the end. If they do perform and deliver the project, then you would release them from that liability and whatever the surety bond or the letter of credit, so they can,
Sure. Yes, good point. Absolutely true. Yes.
Yeah, I like the idea of the letter of credit because it could have helped in a lot of situations that we've had in the past. And I think this one of the reasons this came to head is because we talked about setting a bond on the wetlands banks, because if he starts it and walks away from it, who's going to repair it or put it back so these people in the neighborhood don't get swamped? So that was one of the reasons we were talking about setting a bond on that. But that letter of credit sounds, that's smart.
Well, I don't want to give any false hope on the letter of credit for a long-term situation because they usually expire on an annual basis. I've worked with a number of banks where I've had them agree to annually renew it on an ongoing basis, but that's in connection with the development, and they can feel comfortable that in the most 3, 4, 5 years, that money's going to end and be released. they'll be in the clear. For a long-term conservation of a wetland bank for dozens of years, maybe longer, I don't think it's very likely that a bank is going to issue a letter of credit for that. So I don't want to get your hopes up on that side.
Yeah, but at least we're talking about, because we did talk about setting a bond on that company, because we're worried what happens if he walks away.
I believe the state, as part of their permit requirement, they have a bond requirement when they go and get that permit. So the state holds that bond for the long term.
Yeah, he did say that.
So I guess.
What's your recommendation?
The recommendation here is to initiate that with the attorney's office and have Steve, and maybe I can help with that. Look into
Follow the bond procedure.
develop a bond ordinance and have the township adopt it.
Attorney John?
Yes, and we can also assist with preparing the form agreement to go along with it and give some instruction on the letter of credit.
All right, so just a motion directing that.
So moved.
Support.
Motion by trustee Churchy, supported by trustee Boyd. Any other questions or discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Zayden. Public comments? Any public comments at this time? No public comment.
Make a motion to adjourn at 9:50.
Support.
Motion by trustee Churchy, supported by trustee Boyd. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries. Meeting adjourned.